Hello, my name's Hannah. Welcome back to my allotment channel. Today is Thursday. It's at the end of May and I'm here to do a quick plot tour to see what's changed this month. The first thing is this has been such a cold, wet May. I think I heard on the radio that it's due to be the coldest May for 25 years. And after one of the driest Aprils, May's also brought lots and lots of rain. So that's been quite a challenging start for a few of the plants, and everything feels so far behind what it did this time last year. Now, it's also a bit strange because May's such a busy month for gardeners usually, getting things out, getting things in the ground, but it's also the leanest month of the year because we're currently in the hungry gap. We've used up most of the crops from the last season, and the things that we've planted this year aren't yet really ready to harvest. We have got a few harvests. The salad is ready, some of the radishes are ready, but everything else is so far behind, so you don't get any of the joy that you usually get from the harvest. And it has been such a disheartening month, especially for us, because just after the last plot tour, a fox got into our back garden and he killed all our 7 chickens, and to be honest, that really hit me harder than I thought it would. The children are really upset because some of the chickens we raised from teeny tiny like chicks, and yeah, I think that just set me behind a little bit. And also we had a little bit of a setback with the more tender plants. I planted my pumpkins and courgettes and I proudly put them in the greenhouse, and the next day I discovered that they had nearly all the seeds had been eaten by mice in my greenhouse. And again, another thing this month, because of the cold and wet weather that we've had, it's brought out so many slugs, and a few of my brassica beds have been really badly attacked. Now, I have tried to combat this. I try to be as organic as I can be, so I've been using things like eggshells and nematodes and some organic slug pellets. But I think a lot of the damage is already done, and yeah, I don't think I've won phase 1 of the battle of the slugs. There are some things that I think might recover, some things that it's still in the balance. We'll see how it goes, but I'm not disheartened. I'm going to sow some more seeds, I'm going to fill the spaces, and I'm going to get back to it. But yeah, it's been a very interesting May. Let's hope that June is a better month. Thought I'd give you a quick tour of what I've got in my wheelbarrow to do today. I'm slowly evicting things from the greenhouse. These haven't been in the greenhouse, these are celery. These have just been outside hardening off for the past few weeks. And these are ready to go in the ground. They're the variety called Golden Self-Blanching, and I've got 2 trays of those. At the back here I've got a tray of nasturtiums. Now, last year I planted nasturtiums around my raspberry bed at the bottom, and they did a brilliant job of keeping back the weeds around the raspberries, so I'm going to do the same thing again this year. This is a beautiful variety that I can't wait to see flower, called Salmon Baby. Now, these are a more compact nasturtium, so I'm hoping that they don't run quite as wild as the ones last year did, because last year I didn't have grass paths, I just had dirt paths, and they covered the paths as well as the beds. So I'm hoping with these being slightly more compact plants we don't have the same problem. At the front here I've got some ceranth, which I also grew last year, and it was beautiful. These are more than ready to go out, so I'm going to plant them out now and see how they do. I've got 4 cucumber plants, and I'm not sure if you can see, but they have already started to flower. Some of them are already forming tiny cucumbers. So I was given these by a neighbour. I'm not sure what variety they are, but I'm going to pop them in the ground and see how they do. And just hiding at the back here, I've got 2. Oh, that might not be a good idea actually. Let's see if I can find it. I have 2 tree cabbages from Real Seeds. Now these today aren't for me, these are for an allotment neighbour that I'm just going to drop off with him. I do have a few more that I want to plant out down here, and I'm so excited to give these a go this year. It might make up for the decimation to the other brassicas from the slugs, hopefully, if they make it. Fingers crossed. And obviously, most importantly, these I've got some milk for my tea and a Viennese wheel. And that's the first job of the day. Let's put the kettle on. And just while the kettle's boiling, I thought I'd show you the rest of the French beans that I brought down the other day to plant. I was rained off, so I didn't get all of these in the ground, and as you can see, the variety at this side, which is Lazy Housewife from Real Seeds, is doing so much better than the variety at this side. Now, typically enough, it was this variety that I was most excited about this year. This variety is called Trifornio Violetta, and it's from an Italian seed company, I believe, called Franchi. And this one must be so tasty to the slugs, because they have really enjoyed feasting on some of these leaves. So I'm going to sow a few more of these today when I get home, but I'm going to salvage what I can. I think some of them have still got growing tips and still might do okay, so I'm going to put some of these in the ground. But yeah, I think the slugs have had a feast. And behind them we have got some spring onions. Oh no, Bedfordshire Champion, not spring onions. These are a main crop onion that I haven't got in the ground. These are desperate to go in the ground, so that's another job for today. I thought I'd begin by having my tea while I show you the no-dig salad bed. Now, it's looking quite good actually. When I first planted these, I netted them, but the net was really restricting them. They weren't thriving because it was just laid over the top really. So I decided to take the net off and risk it. Now we do have peas on this allotment, and the peas have been absolutely fine. They've not been disturbed by the birds at all, but birds do generally love lettuce and salad crops and peas, so you might not be able to get away with this. Please, I don't want to be in trouble for having people's lettuce crops decimated, but it works really well here. Now, as you can see, we have got some whoppers of radishes. We have been harvesting radish already. I have been leaving the 2 from each of the multi-sown radish plants in here, hoping that they will go to seed and then we can harvest the seed pods too. The Mizuna which is next to the radish, didn't last very long at all. It went to seed pretty much as we planted it outside, but I think that was due to the really warm temperatures we had in April when it was so dry. But the rest of the bed is looking amazing. There's a few spaces we've been picking already. I have to say that I think my favourite has to be the Lola Rossa. But I love how the red lettuces had some real depth and some real colour to the plate and to the garden. Yeah, it's just really fun. I've really enjoyed having the salad bed. It is, however, covered in mare's tail, so I've just hoed the top of the bed off, and I'm going to go through by hand at some point this week to make sure that I get all the mare's tail out of the bed. And this is the pond area, and would you look at the size of this Carex Evergold. It is just amazing. It's put on so much growth and it's just beautiful. I am so pleased that I bought this to go at the side of the pond. It's one of my favourites now. The oxeye daisies are also doing really well. They're just in bud and they should be in flower within the next week or so, I think. And excitingly, my mulberry tree, which is marked by this cane here, has also started to come back to life, although it's been a little bit drowned out at the moment by the oxeye daisy. So I'm going to keep an eye on that just to check it's got the sunlight that it needs and it's not too overcrowded. Now, the area down this strip is a little bit weedy, and that's because there's lots of things that have self-seeded and I don't want to hoe it because I don't want to hoe down anything I want to keep. But I've put a lot of cut flowers in this area. So there's the Brisa Maxima, which is looking beautiful. There's the Orlea grandiflora. There's Love in a Mist, Nigella. There's Amnimagus. There's lots and lots of flowers that I cut, that I've sowed especially for cutting in this area. I've also just put in some of the Cerinthe just down here, which I mentioned earlier, and I've got some new plants for the pond. Now, the first one is this here, which is a miniature pennywort. Now, I saw this plant on Malcolm Kingswell's channel, which I will link below, and it just looks so beautiful. He had tadpoles at the time that were taking cover, and it just stole my heart. So I had to find one, and I did, from a company in Devon. And I also bought from them a miniature lily for the pond, and I really would love the lily to thrive. It's been in now a few weeks and it's not doing too well, so if anyone's got any tips on what I can do to save the lily, I would absolutely love to hear, because I don't want to lose it. But that's the plan, is to add some more oxygenating plants which will use up some of the nutrients in the pond water, which will hopefully stop the algae from thriving, because for the algae to thrive they need plenty of sunlight, and as you can see the pond's in full sun, so they're getting that just from where I put the pond. There's no shade. Which is one of the reasons I bought the lily, because the lily will sit on top of the water and provide a little bit of shade, which will prevent the algae from thriving. The other thing is to keep taking the debris and things that fall in the pond out, because that will deprive the pond of nutrients, and also to add oxygenating plants. Like the miniature pennywort, which will use up some of those nutrients as well, meaning there'll be less nutrients for the algae. it's a fine balance, and because I'm trying to be organic, I am trying not to add anything extra to the pond really. So I'm trying to do this in the least invasive way as possible. I'd like it to find a natural balance. So I'm going to leave it a few more weeks and see if what I have done so far has taken any effect. And it might be that I need to try again. I think this might be an ongoing project, but it will be interesting to see what works and what doesn't. And at the other side of the path from the pond and the salad bed is Orchard Row. Now, these trees I planted as bare root trees last year, so I'm not expecting too much from them this year. The pear is looking a little more healthy than it was. I think it just needed a really good water. You can't see me, can you? No. I think it needed the water, and by goodness, May gave it water. So it is looking a lot healthier than it was, and yeah, it's really starting to thrive now. Now, apart from the trees, I didn't really have a good idea of what else I could put in this area. And over the past month I've been having a think, and I've decided that I'm going to add herbs and some flowers underneath the trees, and also this is where I'm going to put my globe artichokes. Now, I have a reputation for killing globe artichokes. I've tried to sow them from seed quite a few times before, and they've never made it into the second year. So I have now around about 8 plants at home. Not that I'm going to be able to fit 8 plants down here. I think I'm just edging my bets a little after having such a bad start. But I'm hoping to put the globe artichokes just across here. And I'm hoping to have maybe 2 or 3 across this area at the back of these trees across here. Now, it's really weedy, it needs a weed, but apart from that, it's looking really well. And this is where I've started to put some other things. I've got some parsley, the mint, which was there last month. I've had a few extra seedlings, like this is a lettuce, which I've just popped down here to save it. And we've got some chervil and some more parsley. So yeah, this is going to be a bit of a mixed bed, but I'm really happy that the trees have made it. In this bed we have, at the very front, we've got some parsley. This is triple curled parsley, triple curled leaf parsley. The broad beans are doing well. They've got flowers on now. So a lot behind some of the pictures I've seen of others elsewhere, but I'm pleased to see the flowers, which means that we should hopefully get some beans this year. Next to the beans, I've got some turnips. Now the turnips are just starting to heart up, so I think within 2 to 3 weeks we will be eating turnips, which will be really exciting. This is my first time growing turnips. I did try swede a few years ago in my last allotment, but they didn't make it. So yeah, I'm really pleased that these have come through, and hopefully we'll have an harvest soon. And behind the turnips there is some early potatoes as well. So at the back of this bed in the path, there is where the brick is either the tayberry or the loganberry. I'm not sure which one is which. I'll have to wait until they start fruiting to be able to tell a difference. And the fennel has now been planted, so that's in the ground. It's my first time growing fennel too, so I'm not really sure what to expect, but it is already starting to bulb up at the bottom, so see what happens with that. The potatoes next to the fennel are starting to come through. Got 3 rows of early potatoes, and then right at the end here, hiding amongst the mare's tail, which is a lot more visible, is my parsnips. And I've got 3 rows of parsnips just at the front of this bed, and yeah, they're doing really well. They do need hand weeding between the rows, but I have never successfully grown parsnips before either, so these ones in this section were ones that were given to me by my allotment neighbour, and I pricked the seedlings out. Now I know with parsnips they don't like the roots to be disturbed, so I did my best not to disturb the roots, but it will be interesting to see later on in the season if they do survive what has happened, because in the next bed I've got some that I direct sowed earlier on this month. So across from the bed with the module sown parsnips, we have the main pathway, which I'm still on now, which will be grassed hopefully by the end of this month. Then I've got my flower border. You can just see the gladioli popping up before we move on to the next bed. And the next bed is shared between some potatoes, some direct sown parsnips and direct sown carrots. Nothing's coming up just yet apart from the weeds, so we'll have to see how they do. The next bed across is empty at the moment. I think that's where the Brussels sprouts will go. And the bed afterwards is the cabbage bed. Let me show you that. So this is the cabbage bed. And all these cabbages across the back here are new. They were given from an allotment neighbour because all the ones across this back row were completely eaten by the slugs. There wasn't even any leaf left. They had no chance of surviving. So I've been given a few spring cabbages which I've popped in their place. The ones towards the front, there are still a few with growing tips, so they might yet come back. And I was really excited about especially some of the varieties, especially the Silsden Bomb White, and I had some Cabise as well, which I've never grown before. So I'm hoping that some of the originals do make it, but we'll see really, with the time will tell. And this is the other brassica bed. Now in this brassica bed I've got some calabrese at the back, some spring cabbage and some kohlrabi. Now this again is being quite badly munched by the slugs, but now the nematodes are down and I've got some organic slug pellets. I'm hoping that there's enough strength left for them to recover, but only time will tell for that. I think the reason why this side of the plot has had so much more slug damage than the left hand side of the plot is because this side is closer to my neighbour's plot that has been really overgrown for the most of this year up until recently, where they've done a bit more to tidy it up, and also this time last year I had some things composting on this area because I'd sown the grass seed for the grass path and I didn't have access to my compost bins, so I used this as kind of an extra compost pile, and I think that's probably contributed to the slugs thriving and the plants being munched. And so the bean arch is finished and all the beans are planted. I've put some mesh that comes up to about 4 foot on the archway, and that's just to help the plants get started, although I think I'll regret this in autumn because the mesh is quite fine, so I think it's going to be quite hard to remove the plants once we have harvested all the beans. I am going to need to add some more support, so my idea at the moment is to add some more string, maybe 2 sets of string between each between each metal bar that comes over the top just to give the plants extra support. And I've got a really good range of varieties. Quite a few are new to me. I've got some Greek gigantes and borlotti beans, both of which are going to be dried to eat in soups and stews over the winter. And I've got 3 different varieties of climbing French bean. There's Cherokee, Trail of Tears down to this side, and I've got Lazy Housewife climbing French beans at this side. Both of those varieties are climbing green French beans that should grow quite tall enough to cover the top of this archway. And the other variety I've got is a purple climbing French bean, and that's the variety that hasn't done so well this year. So I've planted all the plants that I have got, but I'm going to put some more seeds in for the Trifornio violetta, the purple French bean, just to fill the gaps, because some of the plants I've planted also don't look too strong. So yeah, hopefully I can fill the gaps and this archway will be completely covered in beans sort of towards the end of July. And in the bed on the other side of the bean arch, we've got the sugar snap peas, or mange too, and these are doing really well as well. I was questioning if they would be able to climb this frame, but so far so good. So I think I'm going to leave them to carry on doing what they're doing. And this is one of my 4 strawberry beds, and can we just take a minute to appreciate the mare's tail, because it is going absolutely crazy. I really wish that everything else would grow as fast as this stuff grows, because it would just be immense. I mean, this has survived the prehistoric age. Like I said before, my plan of action for this is to keep pulling it whenever I see it, keep hoeing it off the top. But I've left this a little bit too long, really, because what happens is once it's established and through, it'll start sending energy back to its roots. Now this is probably the worst place for mare's tail on this allotment, and that's because last year this is where I had my potatoes and I let the potatoes go a bit mad. I didn't weed at all, really, the mare's tail out, other than at the very start of the season. So it had all season to establish, which is why it's got so much vigour here, and it's a lot more it's a lot more active here than on other parts of the plot, because it's got so much energy after feeding itself for a full year. The other thing that I've noticed apart from these strawberries is, if you can see this here, this is actually a strawberry runner, and it's trying to make new strawberry plants. Now I'm going to take this off, just because these strawberries obviously haven't fruited yet. They've got some strawberries that are just starting to grow, and if they start running, I'm worried that they'll send all the energy to the runners and not to the fruit, which is what I don't want. So every time I see a runner, I'm taking the runner off. I think they're just confused, I think, this year. I've never seen this before, but I think it's because we've had such a weird start to the year, really. It was warm in April and so dry, and then obviously since then we've had nothing but quite cold weather for May and rain. So it will be interesting to see if we get many strawberries this year. And I've now finished weeding this strawberry bed, and I've taken all the mare's tail out. Now for the mare's tail, all I've done is left it on the surface of the pathway at the moment to die off, because all that goodness then from the mare's tail will be put back into the ground for the plants to enjoy, rather than taking it away and bagging it up, because the sun should completely kill these sections off within a few days. So looking down this side of the plot towards the gate, past the strawberry beds, this is now the fruit section of the plot, and these are my autumn raspberries. My summer raspberries are at the other side of the path, and I've planted now some of the nasturtiums either side, and I'm just hoping that with the nasturtiums in the ground it just helps cover the soil, which will protect the soil, and it will also prevent the weeds from growing through, and it should look really pretty too. And just beyond the raspberries, this is where I have my rhubarb bed. Now, one of the rhubarb plants hasn't changed and still looks the same now as it did last month. That's the Timpley early variety, and I'm not sure that's going to survive anymore. So I think I'm going to take that out, and I think I'm going to replace it with a globe artichoke in this bed too, because I think that 2 rhubarb plants should be enough to sustain us with rhubarb. So yeah, I'm going to put a globe artichoke in the middle. At the end of this bed, at the end of the pathway, sorry, I have some cornflowers. I'm hoping to make use of the ends of all the pathways with different flowers and different things, because otherwise I think it's a little bit of wasted space. And I've got the garlic. Now, at the moment, the garlic has got quite a bit of mare's tail in the middle of it again, but it's looking so healthy. I'm so pleased. The only thing that I am disappointed about with the garlic this year is that I put all the labels in to show what varieties I had planted, and the pen has rubbed off the labels, and I didn't take a note anywhere else. So I'm not actually sure what varieties of garlic are what varieties, which is not a problem for just eating them, but I did want to save some of the bulbs to grow again next year, and now if I do that I won't know which varieties are which. The one variety I do know is the elephant garlic, because that is so much bigger and it's in a different part of the plot. And this is my herb border at this side, and this is where I had all my tulips and my daffodils. This side, the tulips and daffs are now finished. Sadly, it's always sad to see them go. But this side has really come alive. These chive flowers are absolutely beautiful. The rhubarb has finished being forced, and that's put on so much growth. And it's looking really healthy. And the borage, the self-seeded borage seedlings, which I left in this area while I was deciding what to do, I've taken over a little bit. Now, at the side of the borage is the sweet Sicily, and that did flower, but it didn't get very big. I think I moved it from further down earlier on in the year, and I think that's really it really didn't do it any favours. I think really, in hindsight, I should have left it where it was, but then it didn't have the space. So it's always a bit of a battle to know what to do for the best sometimes. But yeah, it has flowered. I'm still hoping to use some of the seeds, which are just coming out now, and hoping to use some of the leaves and the roots this year to use as flavourings for different things. So I'm still really excited about that, but I was hoping it would get a little bit bigger. So these are the Angelica seeds. When they're green like this, you can eat them and they are delicious. They've got a really strong aniseed taste. In front of the sweet Sicily, there's my thyme. There is a few other bits and pieces. I've popped some fennel, some spare fennel down at the side. I've also got some radishes down here too, so I've been filling the gaps with things that I've had spare. The thyme is looking amazing. The mint, which I thought hadn't survived, has come back, and it's looking really nice too. And my rosemary plant is not looking so happy. It has got some greenery now. I think what I'm going to do is take off all the dead wood and just see if it can make a comeback from that. So here is the Angelica, and that's doing fantastically well. It's really put on a lot of growth. It's looking really healthy. The star of the show has got to be the honesty, and it just, as it's looking so healthy, it's got so big, the flowers are absolutely beautiful. But one of the main reasons I planted this was for the seed pods, and the seed pods are just starting to develop now, and there's hundreds of them. There's hundreds and hundreds of them. There's going to be so many seeds. And yeah, it's just been the star of the show. It's so pretty. As expected, just hiding behind these chives, the pineapple sage, which was so beautiful last year, has not made a comeback. So I'm going to search one of these down to see if I can find another one to plant for this year, because it was just beautiful. This area is my diagonal path with two triangular fruit beds either side, that leads to my gate at the top. It is looking fairly underwhelming at the moment. This path will be grassed this year, and at the side of the path I've got some chive plants which are still baby chive plants, and I've got lots of weeds. But once the chives are established, and I think it's just going to look amazing if there's sort of a flush of chives with purple flowers either side of this path. Now, I haven't actually had any fruit yet from these fruit bushes, and there's two different currants. There's a red currant and a black currant, and across this side I've got some gooseberries and a jostaberry plant. Now, the gooseberries, last year it was a new plant, and there was only one gooseberry which was eaten by the birds. I didn't really keep an eye on it, and the next time I checked to see where it was, it had completely vanished. But this year there is hundreds of gooseberries on the gooseberry bush, so I really can't wait to try my first gooseberry. And this is the view looking from the gate down the left side of the plot. And so I've got my summer fruiting raspberries, and then followed by two again beds of strawberries, and then there's the archway with the peas growing over it. Now, I'm really excited about the archways. I can't wait to see how they do. I really want the peas to climb over the top of the archways and just cover the entire archway. Fingers crossed. And next to the peas, I have just planted today some runner beans, which I was given from my plot neighbour. And at the back, I've planted the cucumbers that you saw earlier. My plan is to try training the cucumbers up the fence this year to see how that does, and I'm hoping that these runner beans climb up this teepee. I have left a small gap in the middle because I thought my children might enjoy using that as a den if the runner beans climb up to the top of this teepee. And next to the onions, I have some more brassicas. Now, this is a different type of net. Usually I use scaffolding netting because I find it's much better value for money, and it does a really efficient job of obviously keeping the birds away. But the other thing I find with scaffolding netting is it's often so fine that it keeps the whitefly inside, and it kind of creates a really warm microenvironment inside the netting as well, which is perfect in some respects for the vegetables, but it also encourages a lot of weed growth. So this is a bit of a test this year to see how this does. This netting, I'll leave a link to below, but it's quite a bit more expensive than the scaffolding netting, but it looks really good quality, so if it's something that will last, it might be worth the investment. Now, this bed is full of cauliflowers. I've got two different varieties. One's a variety called Igloo, which is kind of a bog standard cauliflower, and I've also got some Romanesco cauliflowers. Last year my cauliflowers were a whopping great fail. I think my biggest cauliflower was around the size of a golf ball. So yeah, they didn't do so well, but I didn't give them enough space. I think that was the problem. So this year I've given them a little bit more space. I've put 3 in a row. Whether that'll be enough space at the moment, I'm not sure. Next year, if it's not enough and they don't produce, I think I'll just put 2 in a row next year, but we'll see how they do first. And then next to in front of the cauliflowers, I've got 2 rows of pak choi, all of which have gone to seed, and some spinach. And then next to the brassica bed, there is a bed that's split between beetroot at the front and some potatoes at the back. And this is my broccoli bed predominantly. I've got 2 different varieties of sprouting broccoli. The first one is an early variety and I've got a late variety. I'm hoping that one of them is ready to harvest at the end of this year, sort of towards Christmas, and hopefully one should be ready to harvest in sort of March next year. At the back of that bed I've also got some perennial tree cabbages, so I'm excited to see how they do. At the end of the pathway I have got some syrinth planted because that was beautiful last year. And I've just popped some spare fennel at the end of this empty bed too. And in these last 2 beds, I've got some celeriac at the top end of this bed. I tried celeriac for the first time last year and I absolutely loved it. So this year I've got this bed planted up with celeriac, and I really hope that it produces some lovely plants because yeah, I'm excited to try that again in winter. I've got a bit of a space in the middle, and then I've got 2 different varieties of peas. Now I've grown these separately up pods, little tripods, because these are 2 varieties from the Heritage Seed Library. One that I am so excited about is Sutton's Purple Podded, and they are a purple podded pea, as the name suggests, and that should make them really easy to pick. And the second variety is a variety called Epicure, and again, yeah, I'm excited to see how those do. Both of them are quite good climbers, so they should reach the top of the tripods hopefully within a few months. And then at this side of the path is my kale bed. Now these again have had some slug damage, but much less than the plants on the right side of the plot, because these are on the left, just in front of the shed. And yeah, I think these are going to recover fine. There's quite a lot of kale here. I've tried to give them a lot of space, and I've got to be honest, kale is one of those things that I'm not a huge fan of. I'm hoping to convince myself otherwise this year, and a lot of this I actually grew knowing that the chickens would eat anything that we didn't, and now obviously we don't have the chickens, so that's really sad. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how the kale's doing. I did lose 1 plant and I replaced it with some of the kale I grew as a salad crop, the red rubble kale, but the other ones are all doing really well. They're really thriving. And that's about it for this month's plot tour. Thank you very much for watching, especially if you got this far. I'd love it if you'd give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, and hopefully I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.